Hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Wandering Works for Us. We are Shelley and Beth, a married couple living in Portugal and traveling the world. These are our stories. Hi everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. This is Shelley.
And this is Beth.
And we're Wandering Works for Us. And today we're going to talk about a couple of trips that we've taken to monasteries. We tried to record this once before, and we got completely through it, and I started listening to it, and was bored out of my mind.
Well, we just talked about one of the monasteries in that one, and for some reason, we just weren't.
We were duds that day.
We were just not into it.
And so today, we're going to try something new. It's a big weekend here in Portugal.
It is.
It's São João Weekend. Well, I don't know if Portugal actually calls it that.
Yeah, we're calling
it that. It's São João Weekend.
Well, and what is happening at 5 p.m. our time that's so exciting?
Portugal is playing in the Euro Cup. I think they're playing Turkey. And so we're going to head over to the cafe and watch them play. And then we're going to pop down to our friends Aaron and Ray, thank you.
Hey, Aaron and Ray.
Hey, Aaron and Ray. I wanted to call him Jay. That's not Ray.
No.
To Aaron and Ray's neighborhood, and we're going to go to their festa, and we're having sardines, I think.
I believe we are.
Which is what you have during this period of time. Apparently, sardines are big in June, although they're better in August.
Yeah, because they get fatter.
They get fatter.
They've kind of just come into season now, and they're good. Don't get me wrong. We've eaten them a couple of times now, but they get even fatter and better by August.
And then tomorrow, one of our neighborhood cafes is having a party.
For São João.
Yeah, I've heard that there's sardines, but I don't know if that'll be true or not. But we know there'll be live music, so of course we have to go down and check that out.
Yeah. So we're busy.
Big weekend. Big weekend.
Yes. So let's talk about the Batalha Monastery and try to make it interesting this time.
It really is a very interesting place to visit.
It is. It's beautiful.
We were coming back from our trip from the schist villages, and you go through Batalha pretty much on your way back home from where we were. And it's been on our list for a while to see. And so we just decided that we were going to stop in and check it out on the way back. And I'm certainly glad that we did. It is a beautiful monastery.
Isn't this the one with the really soaring ceiling?
It's huge.
Yeah,
it's like 106 feet tall ceiling. And I got to say that we've seen, up until that part, we had seen Jeronimo's Monastery in Lisbon, and we had seen the Alcobaça Monastery in Alcobaça. And both of those are beautiful, but the Batalha was, to me, much better than the other two. Of course, I'll have to go back and visit Alcobaça because we did that when we first got here.
We did, and I love it. I don't know. It's hard. They're very different, the ones that we've seen. And by that, I mean in architectural details.
And that's something you would have to expand on because I am just now learning about Manueline architecture and all the different styles. Me, I go into the building and go, whoa, that's pretty.
Well, the one in Batalha was, the church itself was much, I'm going to say plainer.
It was plain.
It didn't have
it was huge, but it was plain.
Yeah, very, very tall ceiling. It didn't have as much architectural detail added to it. It had, or a altarpiece, is what I'm trying to say, an altarpiece that was, gilded and blah, blah, all that fancy stuff. It didn't have that. It instead had Christ on a cross. And I can't remember what else.
There weren't any paintings. They had some beautiful stained glass in there.
They did. But the main feature of it, if you will, is just the soaring vastness of it is just,
it's humongous.
You know, and the arches and the stained glass. And remember, at the right time of the day, and we happened to be there when the sun was shining on one side of the building, it made gorgeous rainbow patterns on the stone floor, and that was cool.
It did. It was beautiful. And in that part, when you go in through the front door instead of the side door like we did, but if you go in through the front door, that part you can see for free. But as usual, if you pay €10, you get to see other parts that other people don't get to see unless they pay.
The first of which is the Founders Chapel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of John the First, or João the First, I believe.
Yes.
I've learned so much about kings lately.
King João the First.
Yeah, that I get a little confused.
So that part was built started in 1426.
So this is a medieval monastery.
And it has a lot more detail in it. It's much fancier, if you will, than the main church.
It is incredibly beautiful. And it's it's built as a square, but it feels round because it guides you kind of through into the center where the graves of João and his queen, whose name I can't remember. I think it's Isabella, maybe?
I'll tell you
or
in a minute.
Philippe.
Go ahead.
Philippa? I can't remember. Anyway.
Philippa. There
Philippa,
it is.
Yay.
Queen Philippa of Lancaster.
So that's the first joint tomb ever in Portugal, where the two of them are buried together.
Yeah.
And the room kind of brings you into the center where you're looking at their grave, and then you look up into this another vast ceiling. That's
and it's a dome.
Star and a dome.
Yeah.
It is incredible. And then,
gorgeous.
of course, there's Manueline design all over the tombs, around the sides. And it was built basically as a pantheon for João's descendants. He and his descendants to be buried there.
Right. And then around the room, isn't it, there are several of his descendants also entombed there. And it's just magnificent.
Which one of them was Prince Henry the Navigator? I didn't realize.
Yes.
Prince Henry the Navigator turns up a lot of places in Portugal. Did you know?
He was all over the place.
He was a navigator. He was all over the place.
He wandered like us.
He did. Because he was, in Tomar, like part of the Order of Christ. He was navigating around Africa. The man got around.
He did. He must have had a long life. I don't know how long he lived, but he did a lot.
I'll come back in another podcast and let you know. Not real sure about that.
Yeah. So after the Founders Chapel, we went out into the first cloister. And if you don't know what a cloister is, it is an area that has a garden or trees or plantings or a well or all of those things in the middle, and it doesn't have a roof on it, but then around the four sides it is covered, and usually it's arched, there's arches that go along and gorgeous decoration, and you can either walk around that completely covered in bad weather, or you can go out into the sunshine in good weather.
It was a place for people to take a walk outside.
Yeah.
It was beautiful gardens, usually.
And the first one was called the Royal Cloister of, guess who? João the First. He had that one built.
There's a lot of Manueline design in the arches of that one, which makes it pretty. Because a cloister is, like Beth said, you just kind of walk around in it. It's not that big of a deal. It's a courtyard. But it turns out a lot of these monasteries, there's cloisters everywhere.
And they're gorgeous. I think the architectural detail is just incredible. And off the side of that royal cloister is the chapter house, or what they call the chapter house. And it's not really a house. I don't know why they call it that. But it is a big room with the same style, if you will, as the church and the courtyard and everything you've just come off of. There is an incredible stained glass window in there, and it was originally used to house the tombs of the king and the queen and whoever else until their big rotunda that we just talked about was completed. But now it has the tombs of the unknown soldiers. There's 2 of them there from World War One. That is hard to say when you're drinking. Yeah, when you're drinking gin and tonic. And the big deal about this room, besides the 2 unknown soldiers that are guarded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like the unknown soldier tomb in Washington, D.C., is this incredible room, if you will, that was built with no center support.
Which was a big deal back then.
It was, because nobody believed that it would actually...
Architectural marvel.
Yeah, that it would stay up. And I couldn't even guess about how long and wide that is. But, you know, it's bigger than most houses.
It's big enough to make you think there should be a center support in
Yes,
there.
indeed. Back in that day. And the architect, right? Wasn't it the architect?
Yes.
When it was completed, he spent the first night sleeping right under the middle of it just to prove that it wasn't going to fall down.
Yes.
And it didn't. It's still there today. So we happened to be in that area when some school kids were passing through. And we got to see the changing of the guard of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers.
That was pretty cool.
And that was pretty cool. And then after that, we went on to another royal cloister.
Huh, imagine that.
Uh-huh.
Another cloister.
It was Afonso V.
Does
that sound right?
Yes.
It is plainer, I'm going to say. It has less detail than the one before, but lovely and very sunny in the middle. And so we did that.
Yeah, and the difference between that one, besides the architectural details, was that one has 2 stories. So you could you had, the ground floor, and then you could walk up and walk around the second floor too. Ooh. 2 floors of a cloister. I'm going to go ahead and say that in many cases, when you've seen a cloister, you've seen a cloister. You've seen it. There might be a fountain. There might be a garden.
I will say, for all my architectural detail people out there, that is said by someone who doesn't necessarily notice all those.
I don't.
I do love them. I don't need to walk around all 4 sides necessarily, especially if it's crowded, because it is the same all the way around. But I do love a good cloister, which is kind of weird, I know. Then after that, we came to your favorite part.
Well, first you exit through the gift shop.
Oh, that's right.
As the way things go. The gift shop's very nice. It's got some books and things that, now looking back, I need to go buy a few things. But books in English. But then you have to circle around the outside of the monastery to go back into the place called the Unfinished Chapels. And to me, this was my favorite because this really accentuated architectural detail. There was a lot of detail just in the portal, the arch to get through to the chapels. They're called unfinished because there's no roof on them. They're not finished by any means. And there are several different what were there, 7?
I think there were 7.
I think there were 7 different little chapels that were being built.
So think like side chapels off the main space that doesn't, they have roofs on them, but the main big space does not have a roof.
And this was done in a circle too.
Yes.
It's not in just a square room. This is an actual circle in front of the monastery. It's just beautiful to see. I feel like a lot more detail and a lot more thought went into that process than it did the whole nave or anywhere else in the monastery. It brought more character, I feel like, to the...
It's hard to describe, but, when you're in a cloister, you've got an open ceiling, if you will, and you see the nature. But in this one, it's different because it's very obviously supposed to have a big dome ceiling, and it just sort of ends up there.
The sky is the ceiling.
And there's the sky, and birds are flying in and out, and a lot of the stone is dark because, it's open to nature.
Weather.
Yeah, weather. And although then when you get into the little chapel where it's covered, more of it is surviving. I don't know what their long-term plan is for that. Of course, it's been since the 1400s.
Yeah, I don't think they have one. I think it's just going to be unfinished. Yeah. There it is. So that's what makes it great.
Yeah, and it was started, I don't remember the year that it was started, but the last attempt to finish it was in 1533, and that by, wait for it, King João I. And I think it was 7 kings that tried to finish it over the years, and he was the last, and something would happen. They'd run out of money. The architect would die. They'd, whatever.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, and so it just never got finished, and it was really interesting.
So the Batalha Monastery was incredible. Highly recommend to anyone that loves to go visit those sort of places. Check it out. It'll probably only take you maybe an hour to get through it unless you have a private tour.
Right.
I think we only took an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Maybe an hour and a half. And it was not crowded when we were there, so...
No, and we got through it pretty easily. And the outside of it is a marvel itself, just to see all the manual and detail, the way... we sat outside to have a sandwich before we went in, and I'm like, how was the foundation of this thing built? Because it's such in different little shapes as you go down. It's not just like, okay, here's a wall, and then we're going to turn a corner and go there. No, it's like, here's a wall. Oh, let's make a little circle here. Oh, yeah. Let's make a cut back. Let's go there. It's whoever designed this, and I do have that in the blog, did an amazing feat with that.
It was incredible.
So, highly recommend.
Incredible.
Go to Batalha to see it if you really like monasteries. We didn't spend much time in Batalha itself, but it looked like a charming little town.
It did. We'll go back someday when we're that way.
We'll probably, go do some more exploring in Batalha.
So this one's not a UNESCO site? I don't believe it is. Oh, I beg your pardon. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
So the Batalha Monastery is a World UNESCO Heritage Site.
Yeah, and it was built. They started it in 1385, I think, or something. I mean, it took a century to finish it,
and it's not finished.
Oh, true. They are still missing a dome.
And they're still missing parts.
Yes.
So the other monastery that we went to see recently was in Tomar. Tomar is this cute, adorable. I love this little town, this little medieval town in the middle of Portugal. Now, Batalha, Alcobaça, both of those could probably be a tour on your way to Porto or back, from Porto to Lisbon. It could be something done in between. They could also be day trips. There's a lot of tours out there that'll do day trips to Alcobaça, Fatima, Batalha for the day if you want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But Tomar is a little bit different because it's a little further inland, and it becomes its own day trip. But it is the coolest medieval town.
It is.
That is the one that I feel like when we're in, that it is a medieval town.
Yes.
Because even Aviz right down the road has their own little medieval thing going on. And it's, yes, it definitely feels old. But Tomar with its Knights Templar stuff, definitely, that's old.
And I think it's because the Knights Templar, it's such a part of their heritage. And they've really leaned into it, if you will, as a town. Artwork that's built into the cobblestone sidewalks and streets includes the Knights Templar. Is that called a cross? But whatever. We'll call it a cross.
Shield.
Whatever is
Yeah.
shield, whatever it is, and those sorts of things. But it is just a charming little town. Well, we keep calling it little. It's not tiny.
No, but it's not huge either.
Right. It's much bigger than Abidush.
Yes, it's much bigger than Abidush, but it's still walkable.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that the Templars have such an influence in this town is because as soon as King Alfonso basically won the land back from the Moors and made Portugal, mm-hmm. he granted the land where the castle the convent and Tomar are to the Knights Templar. And it was the deal that you build a fortress here to help defend against other invasions.
Yes.
They were more worried about the Moors than anybody else, but still, he saw that because of its location, it was a great place to put a fortress.
And they started that or did that in 1160.
Yes. And there's a statue of the guy that founded it. He was the Grand Master of the Knights Templar in Portugal. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I didn't go back and figure that out.
Is this... Oh, no. This one says Henry the Navigator.
No,
I don't know.
no.
I'm not sure. I don't see it.
But there's a statue of him right in the center of town where the city hall is and the São João Batista church is right in the middle of town. We had a neat little experience when we went up there at the church, didn't we?
We did.
The wedding.
Oh, that. I'm like, what church are we talking about?
The church in the middle of the square.
I'm sorry. We see, folks, I love churches. There is not a church I have ever passed that in Europe that I haven't wanted to go inside of. But that being said, living here, there are a lot of them. And sometimes I get them confused. Anyway, in the middle of Tomar, we noticed that the doors were open of this church. And I was very excited because I didn't get to see the inside the first time we went there. And I start to poke my head in and I'll be doggone, there's a wedding going on.
A big one, too.
A big wedding. And they are into the part of the Mass where the bride and groom are actually sitting on little stools and the priest is talking to them in the congregation. So we went to eat lunch right at that square, one of the cafes on the square. And they left the doors open. And
It was hot. It was warm that day.
And I said to Shelley, okay, when they come out, I am running from this table and I am going to go take some pictures. And I actually ended up doing that. They were so adorable, this bride and groom. And I got some great pictures of them. And everyone was really dressed up for this wedding. And I don't know if that is standard for Portuguese weddings. I'm going to have to ask some people who know. But most of the women had on either like long cocktail dresses. And it was it was lunchtime. So it was the middle of the afternoon. Men, were very dressed up. And
they had on matching suits a lot. With the women's dresses,
they
were matching their partner's
dress.
Yeah,
or at least their tie. Like there was a woman in a royal blue dress and the guy had on a dark gray suit, but then he had this really bright, exact same shade royal blue tie on and a pocket handkerchief that was the royal blue. So everyone was looking very snazzy. Then the entire congregation came out, all of the guests. There was there's a big statue in the middle that Shelley was just talking about, and there are steps going up to it, and everyone at the wedding got up on these steps with the bride and groom in the front, and they took a big photo of everyone that had come to the wedding. And evidently, I have found out since then, that is very traditional to do. And it is sometimes really difficult to find somewhere where you can see everybody. They had the perfect place because there were steps leading up to this, so everybody could be seen. It was just really fun to watch them and to see the interactions of everyone.
If you want to see these pictures, they're on our social media posts, I believe, in both Instagram and Facebook. I would definitely check that out. They're so cute.
They are. They were adorable.
So after we had lunch and partook in a wedding.
Yes, we were underdressed, by the way.
We were very underdressed for this, but we were there. We headed up the hill. Now, to get to the Convent of Christ Monastery, you can walk. There are stairs. There's a path that you can take up, or you can drive up.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend driving up, but I also highly recommend parking in a real parking place.
Yeah. We did a very typical Portuguese thing. as, I don't know, 20 other cars had done already. And we just parked along with them because it seemed like it was okay to park there. And we joke that the Portuguese will park anywhere. They'll just pull up on the sidewalk and leave the car.
Well, there's very little places to park in Portugal. It's like my anxiety of driving.
Yeah.
That's the only... I don't have anxiety about driving, except in really small spaces. But it's the parking. Because there's limited parking.
And I'm never worried about it because I figure I'll just be Portuguese and park wherever.
Yeah, but that gets us in trouble, doesn't it?
It does, because the end of this little side story is that we got a parking ticket.
But it was our first parking ticket in a year, so...
A year and a half almost.
A year and a half.
Yeah, so how about that?
So not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm in the car going, we cannot park here.
That is absolutely true. We would have 20 by now if I were in charge of picking the space. So anyway, if you can drive up there, especially if you don't have the 45 minutes or so to walk up and then walk.
Because it's a hill.
Yeah, walk back down. Then drive up there. There are parking places, some of them legal and some not. And so this is where the Knights Templar, first it was their castle.
Yes. So there's two kind of structures going on. There is a castle, I'm going to call it in the back, but it faces the city of Tomar.
Mm-hmm.
So if you walk around toward from the parking lot, if you walk toward the left and you go up into the gate and up the walk, you can go into the ruins of the castle part.
And it is ruins.
There's nothing left but ruins.
Although there's a lot of structure left that you can see.
And you can walk the castle wall up there. I climbed up part of it and took some pictures one day, the first time we went.
Yes.
Because we didn't go into the convent the first time we went.
Right.
And then if you go to the right of the structure and into the main door of the building, that's where you enter the convent.
Right.
And this is a massive building.
Well, and
I didn't realize how massive it was.
No, I did not realize it either. The convent and the castle together cover about, just the buildings cover about 5 acres.
It's huge.
It's massive. And then it's about a 45-acre site, I think, and the rest of it is garden and
land.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But oh my goodness. But you don't really get the feeling of how vast that is until you get out of the main area. So when you go up the stairs, and you have about 3 flights of stairs to climb to get up there to the main area, buy your ticket, and you go in. And we kind of did this backwards because we didn't have a map. The only maps that were available were in French and German or something.
Yeah. They were out. We were like, okay, we can do English, we can do Portuguese, we might even handle Spanish,
but they had no maps.
But
for
don't confuse us with French and German.
And the guy was like, "Well, there's maps posted everywhere you go," and I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, but no, get a map."
Yeah,
it's
because you get in there and it is, well, as we'll tell later in the story, confusing. So
we went into the main chapel first.
No,
we didn't.
Okay, so first, the Knights Templar were dissolved in, I can't remember what year. 13-something. And they had their castle plus is it the Charola?
Charola, yeah.
Charola, which was a round-shaped oratorium.
Where did we go first?
Are you talking about the big, fantastic round?
Yeah, that's where we went first, right? Okay, so we did it kind of backwards.
So that's that was theirs. Yeah, that's older than the rest of the convent.
Probably so. Yes,
Yes. So then after,
so we went into there to the Charola, which is incredible.
Oh, finished in 1190. I just found it.
I give you a little background information because the Knights Templar started building it when they dissolved. The king made this thing called the Order of Christ.
Yes, in the beginning of the 16th century.
And so after that, everything was for the Order of Christ. And the Order of Christ is a lot like the Templars. They funded schools. They sent people on voyages to the New World. They funded a lot of military operations.
Mm-hmm. They really, I think, from the little bit of reading I did about it, it seems like that they were kind of the same as the Knights.
They were the same as the Templars.
Of the Templars, but they kind of added really serious navigation to it and discovering other worlds, and they brought all kinds of goods back to Portugal. This was Portugal in its heyday. They were the country that was doing the most exploring and discovering
during the Age of Discoveries.
The new lands.
And the Order of Christ funded a great deal of that.
Yes. And that was in 1531 is when it started. I just found
that. Sounds about right. Yeah, 1531.
So let's go back, though, and talk about this Charola.
Well, what I was going to say was, if you're going to tour this place, we did it backwards. We went to the Charola first. We came back out of the Charola, went to all those cloisters, and then and I was thinking that was it for the monastery. I didn't think there was anything left. So when I went looking for a bathroom. We went back through the Charola, and then we realized, holy cow, there's more to this place than we realized. So if we were following the signs like we were supposed to, you go past the model of the building that was there in the very beginning, and you go out to the cloisters. And you just kind of circle around there. There's the chapter house that belonged to Henry the Navigator at first. There he is again. Henry the Navigator.
He was everywhere.
Because he was a Grand Master at one time. And there's the Cloister of Cemeteries, which I didn't realize that was what that was when we were standing in it, but it is. It was supposed to be cemeteries where the monks were buried. And
Are they buried there?
I guess so.
Oh.
Because that's what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
But there were no graves or anything marking anything. And you go out to the other cloister, which you can look down, and there is where they did their laundry in the bottom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and at the top, if you look out the windows, you can see the ruins of the castle around you.
Yes.
And then you go back into the Charola and see that. And that leads you to the rest of the monastery. But the big thing you really want to see is the Charola. It is incredible. Oh my God. Now
we have photos on social media.
The Convent of Christ is my number one must see monastery, and this is why.
Yeah, of course, it's from the 1100s, and it was not. They didn't start to preserve it until centuries later. So there are definitely portions of the walls where there were paintings and things like that are gone, but they are slowly but surely working at restoring that portion as well. But even without that, it is
incredible.
It is yeah.
And it's built in a circle, which is supposed to be a Templar kind of thing that shows equity among all. And it was also built in a circle to kind of fend against enemies, because it's kind of hard to hide in a circular room, apparently.
Oh.
Yep. And then they have this, large kind of altar piece with a dome over it in the middle. It is, anything we describe on this podcast is not going to do it justice. Go to our social media and see the pictures. It's incredible. And when I do the blog post for this, we'll definitely have pictures up. But I don't even know, there's not a word for how amazing this place is.
Yeah. I don't know how many people could stand in there at once.
I don't think very many.
Probably, but I think you could probably get 200 in there.
Maybe if you're standing.
Yeah, if they're standing close in the circle. It's not massive. It's very tall, but the architecture is incredible, and the gilding, and there's a center almost like it would be the altar.
That's what I'd call it's the altar.
Is in the very center, and you can look up into that, and there's a second sort of decorative dome that you're looking at up in there.
Yeah, they had it roped off, so you kind of have to lean in.
Yeah, you leaned in, but I got some good pictures of it, so be sure and look at the blog. And it was just, there was something really special about that space.
I mean, you can feel it when you walk in, and there's the dome. Well, not a dome. There's an arch that you go through to get to that particular place. And you just kind of stop. You can't help but stop and look up. It's incredible.
It is.
It really is. And that, just for that reason, you have to go see that. That is, oh my gosh. And this is where things kind of get wonky, because at this point, I have to go to the bathroom. And so there's a sign that says, water closet, and it points a certain direction. And I tell Beth, I'm going to the bathroom. I'll meet you back in a minute. Thinking that the bathroom was at the bottom of the stairs.
And should really be back in a minute.
Really? I thought so.
Mm-hmm.
But no. So here's your warning, guys. The bathroom is closer to the exit. And I walked through a good portion of this monastery, which was huge, and got lost looking for the bathroom.
She called me and said, I think I'm lost. And I said, what? And I kind of look over, because I was waiting on the upper level of one of the cloisters where she had left me, and I'd just been taking pictures and kind of waiting. And so I go and I look over. Nope, she's not over there. I go and look over the other balcony, and you were nowhere to be found.
80 cloisters in this place.
There really are a lot of them.
Okay, maybe not 80, but I know that I crossed 3 to get to where I was going, and then had to figure out how I was going to get back. You're going to be there for 2 hours just exploring the vastness of the upper cloisters and the bottom part of the cloisters. And then there's like the great hall with these beautiful marble tables where you eat. And then you end up going through a kitchen, and you find a cafe, and then you walk out a door wondering where this one goes, and oh, look, there's an aqueduct behind us.
Oh, yeah, because the complex was so huge, they had their own aqueduct.
Own water system going through
Yeah, and it
is so vast.
It is. It's big.
It is huge.
So, and it is, because it was built as it was, first by, when it was the Knights Templar and it was the castle, and then the Charola, their gathering space, and then the cloisters and the buildings after that. And it happened over time. It's a real plethora of architectural styles. Not that you walk into one from the other and go,
It's not that big of a difference,
but
no.
it does cover a lot of different, Gothic and Byzantine and Romantic and Renaissance, and it just sort of goes all over the place. But also, it is, I think the reason that Shelley got lost is, if any of you have ever been in a fairly large hospital where they just keep building onto it.
I think that's what it is.
And you can't find your way anywhere because it makes no sense when you're in it. It was kind of like that. Yeah, because they just kept building on.
So, I turn a corner and, oh, here's another cloister. Oh, what's in this room? Wait, I got to go to the bathroom. Where's it?
Yeah.
And so, finally, so we didn't even see it all.
We did not.
Even when I doubled back, because Beth had to find me, so I wasn't lost anymore. And she was on an upper level. I was on a lower level. She's taking great pictures of the Manueline window outside, and I'm like directly below it. We have to meet back up. So we missed a few parts of it, I think. But
I think
recommend.
I think we probably in the end saw about 3/4 of it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
In 5 acres or so. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we ended up back, once we found each other and we looked, and then it'd been so long, I had to go to the bathroom. So we went and found the bathroom finally, and then we doubled back to see some of it. But by the time we sort of declared we were done, we were exhausted.
Yeah.
We couldn't have gone. I mean, we didn't want to see more. So we will go back and do it again. And
yeah, I definitely do this one.
yeah,
again.
it's one of those you can, with.
I don't think I get tired of that one the second time.
No. We'll be able to do it multiple times with visitors and
Yeah,
not get tired of it.
The other ones I'm kind of like,
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. But this one, wow. Because there's just so much to explore.
Now, it also is UNESCO World Heritage Site, as are many of the things that we go to.
We crossed that one off our bingo card.
We did. We see a lot of UNESCO stuff here. I think it's my favorite as well so far, although I'm reserving judgment until I go back to Alcobaça because it was gorgeous inside.
I'm saying I loved Alcobaça because that was where Pedro and Inesh's tombs were, but I'm telling you. Convent of Christ is way better.
Yeah. So
it's a not miss.
So we recommend it. We recommend Tomar, walking around the
We'll
old.
come back and tell you all about Tomar later. But
the old town is really great, and there's a river that flows through town. You could go there and stay, 3 nights and 4 days, and eat some really good food, see everything. It's a good place
It's
to
a good place
be.
to. As a going through, I would say, if you're on your way from north to south or south to north, whatever, that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
In my opinion, yes.
Yeah, we liked it.
Well, I think that's about it for today.
I think it is.
We're going to have to wrap this up soon because the game's going to start.
Yeah.
And we can't miss that.
Is it Porso?
Forza? You mean Forza?
Forza
Portugal.
Yeah. Forza Portugal.
Forza Portugal. I need to find my Portugal scarf.
Yeah, we got to put on our scarves and get ourselves over to the cafe.
Yeah, so we can pull for Portugal in the Euro Cup. So I know we confused some of y'all, our listeners last week when we said, we talked about Batalha, and we didn't until now because we didn't want to bore the crap out of you.
Because we ditched that one. And
it was bad.
It was
bad.
It was. We were not on point.
No.
I would also like to say that I believe it is the first podcast that we have recorded when we weren't drinking a gin and tonic.
That might have been the problem.
Yeah, because we did kind of early in the day, and we said, we'll just drink hot tea. We're not going to do that again.
We learned our lesson.
You deserve more fun.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for today. And so we'll catch you next time. I have no idea what our next podcast will be about. It'll be a surprise, but I'm sure it'll be fantastic because that's just what we do.
At least we like to think so.
We like to think so. All right. So we will bid you a grand Forza Portugal and boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you would like to reach out to us or ask questions, you can find us on our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also follow us at our website, www.forus.com. That's www.forus.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Obrigada!